Right here is what we have. And that headline, in a Piga Streets, nasemaje, fooling Kenyans, playing clever. Now, nearly 2 weeks after the arrest of Mohammed Liban, Daniel Kipto, and Joe Sang, no charges have been filed, raising questions about the intent of the operation. As investigators failed to submit a file to prosecutors, the delays risk fueling suspicion that the spectacle was meant to project action rather than deliver accountability, even as the Energy Cabinet Secretary Opiyo Ndai insists he will not resign. And those are images of President William Ruto on the left, and Mohammed Amin, the DCI boss, Renson Ngonga, DPP, and Opiyo Ndai, Energy and Petroleum CS. To date, the Director of Public Prosecutions has yet to receive the inquiry file on the subject matter from the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. That is a statement from the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. Jesse, care to comment?
Well, it's quite unfortunate that the country was fed drama. I think it was during the Easter weekend where these three top officials were arrested, they were booked, they were interrogated, and later released on police bond. But over 10 days later, we barely have an iota of accountability. Because speaking of accountability, stepping aside enough, I don't think so. At the end of the day, we definitely need to see prosecution. And when these authorities were arresting the said individuals, they must have had an idea of the collusion that happened in order to defraud Kenyans, as they said. So were we fed to the Kamata Fridays and thereafter, we barely have a semblance of justice in terms of accountability. And mind you, President William Ruto has been quite vocal, saying that this is the administration that will firmly and decisively deal with cartels. Is this how we're dealing with them?
You know, it's interesting because you look at, by the time these individuals were being picked up, right? Kamata Friday. There is, it is a fact that investigations had been done for them to know that these individuals had committed a crime, right?
Oh, they had an intent to
commit a crime. Now, from there on, these individuals were picked up. They were taken to a DCI. They were grilled down for hours. Now one asks the question, 10 days later, and you're not seeing anyone being taken to court. We're not seeing any movement with regard to any semblance or sense of justice being given to the people of Kenya. Because at the center of it, remember, all these resources do not belong to the president. It is to the people of Kenya with whom an injustice has been committed. Now, DCI needs to tell us why this matter is taking so long, why the DPP does not have the prosecutorial file for him to open these, to take these people to court. One would say that kidogo, there is a problem, and that it's not just enough that the individuals who left office left, but even the cabinet secretary should have, because the buck stopped with them.
Definitely. Well, he says, see no evil, hear no evil. Just yesterday, he was summoned to appear before the National Assembly Energy Committee, and he firmly said, I will not resign, even as this investigation drags on. The Standard has quoted him saying, when it emerged that the consignment had come outside G2G, we moved swiftly because such a deviation would have required higher authority. I briefed the president on March 30th. He advised me to take the necessary steps to ensure one en route is stopped. But I'm pretty sure you saw those government letters.
Correspondence,
I mean, he was CC'd. So when you say I wasn't in the know, this...
You're guilty by omission.
Oh, yeah.
Guilty by omission. You know, like the same way police would tell you, ignorance of the law is not an excuse.
It's no defense.
It's no defense, right? So let's go to page 2. Rising terror financing concerns prompt a stricter PBO regulation, so public benefit organizations face heightened scrutiny amid terrorism financing fears, and the government introduces stricter regulations to enhance accountability, transparency, and sector oversight reforms. We also have a story on love triangle turns deadly as a man, 49 years, allegedly hacks lover to death. This is what I keep saying, man. Kama ampendani, walk. Unajua, ukiachwa, achika. If it's too hot, get out of the kitchen. Si lazima, by the way. Si lazima.
It's not worth your life.
It's not worth your life. So this man is going to spend time in jail simply because he couldn't walk away. Guys, it's never that serious. Kama imekata, walk away. It's better to walk away as a coward. That's what I keep saying. Where there is at watu wanapigana, Jesse, me I'm a coward, me I walk away. You know, it only takes a moment of responding to realize that Allah, kumbe nilimpiga, akafanya nini? Akaenda.
Of course, even as we condemn gender-based violence. Irrespective of the gender.
Yes. Kimengich urges state action against political violence. So that is Bishop Dominic Kimengich and Eldoret National Polytechnic Chief Principal Charles Koech in the image there, calling for an action against political violence. What we saw in Kikuyu over the weekend was just sad. And also in all these political rallies that we see, as much as we know that these rallies are against the law, you know, we know what election laws stipulate with regards to campaigns. We know from the president, you guys have been breaking the law all this while. EACC were calling upon REBC, ODPP. You actually have citizens, you actually have candidates who are good enough to be taken to court without need of any files. Wamevunja tu sheria.
But how do we differentiate between meet the people tours or development tours, as they said, and the campaigns?
The moment I hear the president say, "Hawa watu tutakutana nao pale mbele 20," that's campaign for me.
So when people say one term,
it's campaign.
It's campaign.
When the president says, hawa tutapatana pale mbele nitawanyorosha proper, that's campaign. That's campaign. Because he's talking about an election that is to come, right?
But you know how they play smart with it. They'll put the development track record there. Hii barabara tunafungua, hii shule itasaidia wananchi.
The same thing he would say when he's campaigning.
No, wajinga walisha Kenya.
Wajinga walisha Kenya bana. Tunawaona sana. And festival explores a heavy emotional burdens learners carry in school. So the mental health theme echoes in a mime titled Drowning on Dry Land by Salama School. And the burden of academic pressure is explored in Voyage Savage by the St. Monica Girls as well drama festival there, and there is also a lot that is being said with regard to the political class and government reining in on political messaging in drama and saying nope. There's a school here that had Singapore in their play, and they're told not to perform it. Yet we have CBE, competency-based education, and arts is a pathway in this education system. So on page 4 we have I will not resign, says Wandai, as fuel import investigation drags on, and no day in court for fuel bosses as probe remains incomplete. One would hope that one of these fine days we see heads roll and individuals go to jail. Anxiety as Kenyans brace for new fuel prices today. I can tell you for a fact, I know someone who actually went for panic buying and has close to 150 liters stashed.
Oof.
Yeah. Mkipandisha mimi niko safe.
Yeah,
mafuta ikipotea mimi niko sawa.
So that's classic hoarding.
Classic hoarding. But now he kept on going for like 10 liters until he got his on 50.
Well, I hope he stored it safely, because that's
another thing.
Well.
That's another thing as well.
Yeah. But it speaks to the reality.
The reality there is,
because authorities are saying we have enough fuel stock to last us a couple of weeks. But the reality on the ground, I'm pretty sure you've seen the long lines, borders, motorists characterizing various fuel pumps across the country. Is it artificial shortage because oil marketers are trying to cash in, or do we truly have an issue in terms of fuel in the country? Because other African countries are equally feeling the pinch.
True.
Unfortunately, Africa seems to be on the receiving end wherever there are global uncertainties. Yeah.
I mean, the government, let's see how today goes. Because there's what the government says, there is what oil suppliers are saying, and there is what Mwananchi is experiencing. So you're telling us there's fuel. Petrol stations are saying they don't have fuel. Mwananchi